Now, it's my honor to welcome Dottie Herman. Dottie Herman is the Chief Executive Officer of Douglas Elliman Real Estate. After attending Adelphi University, Dottie began her real estate career in 1978, working as a broker for Merrill Lynch on Long Island. In 1989, Merrill Lynch sold their real estate division to Prudential, where she stayed on as one of their leading brokers. She went on to purchase Prudential Long Island Realty and turned the company into a powerful brokerage on Long Island and then in the Hamptons. In 2003, she and her business partner, Howard Lorber, purchased Douglas Elliman, Manhattan's largest and most prestigious brokerage firm. Among the many accolades that Herman has received throughout her career are being named the 50 most powerful women in New York City by Crain's New York Business in 2009, 11, and 19, and being named America's richest self-made woman in real estate by Forbes in 2016. Being honored at the United Nations Women's Entrepreneurship Day with the prestigious Business Pioneer Award in 2017. So there is a long bio here, and it's in the program, and I know you can read it, but let's do what we do best, okay? Let's give a warm Panther welcome to Dottie Herman. Thank you, Dottie. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. I just want to thank everybody, and I want to congratulate all of you on this year's third annual Women's Leadership Conference. I am sure this is just the beginning of what's going to continue to grow and grow and grow and be huge, and I'm thrilled to be here. I grew up here, so last night when I checked in, I was like, oh, I feel home. I would come to the Garden City Hotel when there was a club in it. I think it was Dillinger's or something, and that I'm dating myself. I grew up in Franklin Square, went to H. Frank Carey High School, went to Adelphi, visited all the local pubs. And at that time, they had a Rothskeller, so we would come out and hang out here. And I have the fondest memories of those years and the fondest memories of this school. And when I came back, it was just magical. And then last night, I had the pleasure of meeting Dr. Christine Reardon. And I have to tell you, I meet a lot of people. I was blown away. She is sensational, smart, bright. Her background is extensive, so sometimes, you say she's got a business, an academic background, she's got vision. And I truly enjoyed every moment of our dinner. And after meeting her, I said, I'm in, whatever you need. So thank you so much. And I didn't say goodbye because this is just the beginning of, I hope, a continued relationship with Adelphi. Now I'm supposed to hit the slides, so let me do that. I found this when I was speaking at a women's conference that happened to have been called Unstoppable. And it says, she is unstoppable not because she never had any fear or concerns, but because she carried on despite them. And it's a simple sentence or two, but I think it says it for everybody who's ever tried to do anything in life. It's nothing to do. I think anybody always has some fears, some doubts. But when you have them, the whole key is you carry on despite them. And that feels like my story. So I wanted to share that with you, and I hope that that's how you are. And if you're not like that, if you're not unstoppable, and that you will be by the time I get through with talking to you. Today, I am going to share my unstoppable journey, okay? And I was a real estate agent. I was a single mom. I went from that to becoming the top 50 most successful, wealthiest, which is really, it's my company's money, not me. But I built a company. I built it from nothing, and I became the top 50 in the females in the United States I want to talk to you today about how I navigated through the peaks and valleys, the lessons that I learned that were the components at key growing up that I didn't realize but would be the components of reaching my dreams and transforming me to who I am today. And one of the things that Dr. Reardon is doing, we were talking, and she goes around and gets alumni stories. And I think stories tell so much to people. And people listen, and, when you meet somebody and, they're up here, you're like, oh my God, how'd they do it? Or maybe they knew somebody, or they had it in. But if you listen to the backstories of how they got there, and how many times they might have stumbled, fallen, but they just got back in the game and kept on going. So my story is really incredible, and I will start. When I was 10 years old, I was in a severe car accident. My mom and dad, we went skiing in Vermont, and I was with my brother and sister, who I was the eldest. And my mother suffered from migraines, and on the way back, she was going to throw up. So she said to my dad, please get off the highway, I'm going to throw up. And in those days, they just about started seat belts, and we didn't have a brand new car, so we didn't have them. We skidded on the ice. The car flipped. My mom got thrown across the parkway and hit her head on a rock and died. I was thrown across the parkway and knocked out. My brother and sister were burned. Everyone's fine, and my dad kind of went through the windshield, and we lied there because it was someplace in Peekskill for a couple of hours. So I being knocked out, which really I didn't realize then was a blessing, because I remember my mom alive, not dead, and I think that's a blessing. But I had no idea we were in a car accident. The last words that I remember my mom saying were, watch out. So I woke up in a hospital with no one around me. And there was a priest, and I tell you to this day, I can see his face and his big blue eyes. And he said to me, I really don't want to be here to tell you this. I don't know why I have to be the one to tell you, but your mom's dead. Now you can imagine a 10-year-old sitting there who had no clue, and I was alone. My dad was in intensive care, and relatives weren't able to get there yet. But he told me a story, and he said, but she's an angel now. And he gave me a wooden angel that when you turn, it's a music box, and it sings Ave Maria. And he said, she's always going to be there for you. She's just going to be your angel. And to this day, I have that angel. And I believe that she's been an angel in my life, my whole life. And I always say, thanks, Mom. Thanks for being my angel. But truthfully, when you're 10 years old and you wake up and your mom's dead, my mom was 34 years old. I mean, it wasn't something that we expected, and some event in life can just change your whole life. I had no one to coddle me. My dad was pretty sick. He was in the hospital for almost a year. I was the oldest. I had no one to, I remember, some great neighbors, would come and set my hair and sometimes make breakfast. I had to make my own decisions, and in many ways, I was free to do whatever I wanted because there was no parental restrictions because my dad wasn't really with it yet, and I had to decide what to do. And there was really no time to feel sorry for myself, and I don't know as a child how you feel. I don't know how, I don't even remember how I internalized it, but there was a lot of great people that lived in this area, that not for money, not for recognition, just because they were good people, would come and help and set my hair, and if I would have a problem, they would talk to me about it. But I didn't know when that happened, that out of this childhood tragedy, I would learn the life skills that would actually mold me into who I was going to be and help me throughout the rest of my entire life. I had to make decisions. I learned to just be self-sufficient. And that's out of a tragedy. So you never know how things learn. when I got older, I started with Merrill Lynch, and I'm going to just tell you a funny story. As women at the time, Merrill Lynch didn't have many women then, and I read because, unfortunately or fortunately, however you want to look at it, they didn't have the internet when I was 18 or 19. You had to go to the library, do all the research. You couldn't do anything quick. So I read in a book, it said if you want to succeed, you are better off being in the mailroom, but be around the person that makes the decisions. And I found out where the CEO of Merrill Lynch was. I saved my money. I paid for a plane ticket. Now, no one does this, but being young, you know, I actually went into his office. The assistant, nobody went into the head of Merrill Lynch's office, even if they worked for them. And somehow when she got up, I just walked in and the man looked at me. And I said, well, I read in a book that if you want to get ahead, you need to go right to the top, and I would be great for your company. He stepped back, and then he smiled. And P.S., voila. At that time, Merrill Lynch was opening a real estate division. They had securities and banks, and so they thought, well, we're going to make an additional profit center from every customer. We'll sell them a stock, get them a mortgage, and then get them a house. And so I was on my way, and I was a sponge. I was so excited. I read everything. I learned about business. Merrill Lynch, and one of the things I stress with companies that you look for if you want to, is that they have a great training program and they allow you to grow. I went to everything they had. And of course, Merrill Lynch was global. So in those days, real estate was very local. You know, the person lived in the town, and they knew everybody in the Chamber of Commerce, and that's how but they didn't expand out of that. So without realizing, I learned real estate in my early 20s in a global way. I was able to see it. And I remember going to meetings, and they would give me some new things. And I was like, well, it's not going to work. And it certainly can't work. And if it could work, it won't work in New York. But of course, when you have a job, you're forced to do it. And truthfully, when you set your mind to it, things worked. And so I learned, I grew, I took advantage of everything. I had great mentors. And I was responsible for 36 offices on Long Island, and I loved working for the company. And in the 80s, Merrill Lynch ruled. It was it. And I never forgot what I learned there. Everything they did in style. Either they did it right or they didn't do it. And they believed that their people were their resources. So they invested in the people, which is something that I followed through with my own company. So I was on cloud 9. So you can imagine that I was devastated when I found out, hey, it's a public company, it's for sale. We're selling the company. And there were, don't stay on the sinking ship. You're selling, Merrill Lynch is being sold to Kmart. It was just, okay. And I was devastated. I love that job. And finally, a year later, when they sold it, I walked into a meeting, and it said, welcome to Prudential. Now, if you go back, Prudential's a big company, but if you go back, Merrill was kind of the creme de la creme. Prudential was a big company, but it was an insurance company. I saw the guys had scuffed shoes. They had cheap suits where Merrill everybody was. And I was like, ah. And then they said, and by the way, we don't believe that real estate should be done nationally. We think it's local. We don't want to have a national company. Merrill owned all the offices. we think it's a local thing, and so we're going to sell franchises. We're going to sell California, Northern California, we'll sell Southern California, and at the time I was part of the Northeast region. So now I realize I'm going to be out of a job as soon as they find the buyer. So I really was upset. So I was, talking, and I was running the company. Now you have to understand, when the company is being sold and it's public information, all the competition is trying to raid the company. And then someone said, Dottie, now I was the youngest person in the company. I was probably about 27. They said, why don't you buy it? I said, buy it? I have no money. I said, I have no money. They said, well, just say you do. And let me tell you, girls, that's the beauty of being young. I'm like, not a bad idea. I will. Because I wanted so badly for that company to stay together, and I wanted to keep my job of running it. So everything in me said, just go for it. So sometimes, even though you don't have a plan, okay, and it wasn't something that I was planning or even thought could happen, but an opportunity happened that I wasn't expecting. And I see a lot of people have opportunities in life that they don't see them and they don't go for them. And, but in my gut, I felt I can do this. I don't have the details. I don't know how I'll figure it out. I certainly don't know how I'll get the money, but I'll figure it out later. And then, as being rated, I stood in front of 1,000 agents, 1,200 at the time. We had 36 offices on Long Island. And I called a meeting, and I said, guys, don't panic. I'm buying the company. And I said to them, we need to stick together because we're strong. I said, we will be strong. Let's just stick together, let's work hard, and don't worry about a thing. I'm buying the company. Now, truthfully, there was no one who really didn't know I really didn't have the money to buy the company. But when you have a culture, that we had a great culture, and sometimes when an outside threat comes that threatens you, it brings people together. And it brought us even more so together. And they would send their husbands, and I don't want to be sexist to say men, but they were men that come in and help me do business plans. And then I started calling banks and saying, listen, I have an opportunity to buy this whole company. They laughed in my face. They said, we wouldn't even give you the money to buy one office. But I was determined to do it. So with the help of some of people's husbands, I did a business plan. I sent it to Prudential. I told them I had venture capital money when I did not have anything. I knew if the agents would leave, because they were being recruited, it would be over. So I kept us, and I learned how to build culture then, and it's so important. People stayed, nobody left. They stuck, we all stuck, we were united to keep that company. And they never really questioned me on where I was getting the money. They wanted to believe. And I was the youngest of all the people in the company. It's different now, but then I was. And I say, I'm going to do this for me, and I'm going to do it for them. And when I stood in front of the people I didn't flinch. I'm buying the company. Don't panic. Relax. That's the day I became a leader. So I have my meeting with Prudential. Now, one thing I do know in business, I'm a pretty good salesman, you don't talk about negative things first because you'll close somebody off. So I talked all about the great company and this, that, and the other thing, all the wonderful things that I would do for 2 hours, not telling them I have no money. Okay? But I sold my vision. I sold what I saw. I sold what it could be. and how much bigger it could be. And I sold how much more money they'd make in franchise fees. So then I had to tell them, I'm committed. I can do this. I had a letter from everybody in the company. They wanted me to stay. I said, but there's one detail. I just don't have the money. You have to lend it to me. They said, what? We're not lending you the money. We can't lend you the money. Well, another lesson I learned, no doesn't mean no. We're taught as children, don't touch the stove, no. But in life, no just doesn't mean maybe not today, maybe a week from now, maybe another time. So they did say no a couple of times, but voila. They lent me something like $17 million. No personal guarantees. I had $1,000 if I had that in the bank. And they gave me working capital of, I don't know, a couple of million. I had nothing. And if you think back at that, people say to me, well, Dottie, they don't do that now. Well, I assure you they didn't do it then. But what's the worst that can happen? Ask. The worst that happens is someone says no. And don't be afraid of that word. So the next 10 years I spent building Long Island. I went out and ventured to the Hamptons, where they boycotted me and said, hey, you didn't come in on the Mayflower. Your parents didn't come in on the Mayflower. You couldn't get into Maidstone. You will not stay in business here. We're the good old boys. And that's exactly what they said to me. So we're not giving you any listings. And, you know, I was a lady and said, okay, whatever. New York Magazine did a story, The Broker from Another Planet. And I sat on my SL car, and I sat with a skirt and a suit on, and I sat on the ocean. And I'm like, what? I'm doing this. And P.S., I have 12 offices in the Hamptons. And I've earned their respect because they watched me, you know, they watched me throw signs when things weren't even for sale. Okay, and they watched the police take them, and I would get them up. And I had to hire all brand new people because nobody experienced. I wouldn't even ask someone to come. We have no listings, we can't get any. So I said, I'll train you all, and I got all new people. There was a guy that someone said, one of the competitors said, oh, you know, this guy Barry, I think he's gonna be fired, he's on vacation. I said, really? What's his number? I left him a message. You're probably back from vacation, and if not, you are going to be fired, but you're welcome at my company. And he certainly came. So I built all that. I built a great, great company, and then I was, you know, I'm a visionary. I kind of saw white space. I was looking at, you know, Robert Moses built bridges to join Manhattan and Long Island. And there was no Long Island, there was a Long Island company, there were great city companies, there were great, okay, but there was nobody that linked New York to Long Island. And when I opened up in the Hamptons, 90% of my customers were from the city. And I'm like, why don't we have them? Why don't I take them? So I decided I'm going to have to open up in the city. I was offered a lot of money, and I was probably 35, 36 then, and it almost gave me a heart attack. I ended up with a heart problem from it because it was a big decision, but I walked away from it. I said, I'm not done. I'm going to build a bridge like Robert Moses did. And so I set out cold calling, which is a skill I learned in sales. Picking up the phone. I can't do it today, there's too many answering machines. And I said, is your company for sale? Is your company for sale? Is your company for sale? I finally got the largest company in New York. It was Douglas Elliman. It was it was a public company. It was owned by Insignia and a man who's very famous named Andrew Farkas. I cold called and I got him. He said, well, it's not for sale, but if you get me $72 million, I'll sell it to you. I said, I'll get it. And I couldn't, it sounds fictitious, but I couldn't make this story up. So I call up Prudential because they're the ones who lent me the money initially. And I had become very close with all the people at Prudential. I really, even because they were a franchise and I was used to working in one company, so I brought in, all of the pieces of the country and kind of made it feel like a company, not just franchises. And I always was a team player, so I helped them out with everything, and I was great with the fine homes since I had the Hamptons. So I called them up and I'm like, listen, I can buy the largest real estate company in Manhattan, and you need to have a Prudential in Manhattan. This is around the time of 9/11, by the way. I should tell you that. So they liked me. And I was always, like I said, a team player, so they helped me. And over the next year, the man, Andrew Farkas, kept his word because there was a lot of bidders. And I got the banker from Prudential and all the salesmen, and it took us a year. And while we were negotiating, there'd be like an orange alert, red alert, orange alert, because they were expecting a second terrorist attack. And the banker looked at me and said, Dottie, am I out of my mind to lend you this money? And I said, if they blow up New York again, it's over. And besides, I'll have arrows with Hamptons that way. And P.S., hard to believe, they lent me $72 million. And then I needed an additional $10 million, so I took a second out from my partner that was a money partner, and he charged me I don't know, like 18% interest or something. But so I took a total of $82 million out. Again, was I personally on it? Well, I didn't have $82 million. I didn't have anything near that. So I just said I have to do it, and I paid the debt off, by the way. And then there was a big headline, actually, Newsday, which in those days, Newsday was really the only paper for Long Island. There was a big front cover with me, and it said, Dottie takes Manhattan. And voila, now I was in Manhattan, in Long Island, in the Hamptons. I had a few offices in Queens. I am proud to say it's been 16 years since I took Manhattan, where I'm still the CEO, and the company controls a portfolio of real estate services, Douglas Elliman Marketing, Douglas Elliman Property Management, Commercial Title. I think we have about 115 offices and about 7,500 people. So it's really grown. And sometimes when I'm standing and telling this story, it's hard to believe it even happened. And when I first started speaking about entrepreneurs and about entrepreneurship, because talk to me about real estate, I could talk for 20 hours. I did all the homework. I'm reading, business plans, this, that. And I'm speaking to a group of people who want to be entrepreneurs, and I said, well, you know what? I didn't do it this way. This is what the books say you have to do, but I didn't do it this way. And I think there's a lot of ways to do it. So I don't think there's one set way. I think we're all women here now, and I think we're all on a journey for success in business, success personally, and that looks different for everyone. We want fulfillment in our lives. And all of the paths, everyone's path to success might be different. There's not, I don't think, a cookie-cutter way. But if you embrace some of the things that I am going to tell you, I really believe you will find success in no matter what you do, okay? And they're really simple. Number one, find what you're passionate about. If you don't love something, you can be okay in it, you can be good in it, but you're never going to be great. When you love something, it doesn't become work. It becomes your passion. So if you keep on going out there, and when I wasn't sure of what I wanted to do, I worked for Merrill. I'm like, I don't know, I'm doing this, but they said it was a great environment. They said, Dottie, just go do things. If you do them right, you'll create your own job. If you do them wrong, we'll fire you, okay? But they allowed me to grow, and you should look at that when you're looking at companies. And that's what I love about this school. I mean, they are so attuned to not only the academics, the skills that you need to continue to grow. Be fearless and tenacious, like I said, and like unstoppable. You need a lot of no's. No one that I know ever became successful without a million no's. Jerry Seinfeld, they told him he was a failure. He wasn't even funny. I could go on and on and on. When you get no, when you feel bad, take a day off, cry a little, dust yourself off, and get back in the game and say, it's not personal. And anybody that you read that's up here failed a million times. They just got back up and kept on going. So don't be afraid to fail. I have a thing in my office, and it says failure is success turned outside. Thomas Edison, he has a quote. It says, I failed my way to success. I think he made 10,000 light bulbs that didn't work. And maybe on the 11,000, it finally worked. So don't be afraid of that. It's part of the process. And that doesn't mean only business. It's, in relationships, with your children sometimes. I mean, nothing's perfect. And I read a book. I made my whole company read it. And when I knew that they didn't read the whole thing, I made Cliff Notes. But there's a book I read, and it's called Good to Great. And they analyze all these companies, and they have to, and they put them in categories. And to become great, it's not like you could be great, like you were a year and then you're great. It has to be, I forgot how many years, but it has to be so many years. And then they kind of look, it's not like a real reading, I mean, you read it, but it's so good. And it tells you some of the qualities that these companies had that were great. But there's a quote in it that I never forgot, and I hope you'll never forget it. And the quote says, good is the enemy of great, because most people are satisfied with good. Don't be. Go for being great. Okay? And then my last thing of wisdom, I see a lot of people that are really talented, like say in the music industry, but it's not necessarily the person that has the best voice that makes a superstar. It's not necessarily the person that's the best doctor or the best lawyer. It's also how you market yourself, how you create your brand, and how when you speak to people, you say it from your gut. You say it so they believe it. I recently went to, it's kind of like a Shark Tank thing. And so these companies, all these investors come, they sit at tables, they have dinner. And by the way, I think I was the only woman there. And then this company comes up and they say, we invented this, this, and this, or we have this, this, and this. And then after the dinner, if you're an investor and you think maybe you would believe in that company, you might be interested in investing in that company, then you go to their table and talk to them. You know what I realized? They didn't know how to sell their companies. Now, maybe whoever started the company should have realized that and said, okay, but let me get somebody who knows how to portray that company, who knows how to say it from their guts, who knows. So it's also how you market it, and you have a wonderful opportunity now with the internet, and I tell everyone from the day you're born, you're a brand. And that brand is precious. But you really can get set apart by that. And so you create your brand and make sure that when you go out and you talk, you sell yourself. So with that, I have to do a slide now. I know this is going to sound hokey, but before I end, you have to just do something hokey with me. I want everyone to stand up. I am so happy to be with you women. I really am a supporter of women. I want us all to take a step because we have it. It's been always there. We just sometimes don't really exert it or believe it ourselves. So let's step into our power. Let's make an oath here. As I said, I'm going to be involved with whatever you guys need, to really work on our personal goals in business and at home, and let's make an oath to each other that we support each other as women. And if we do that, I think we can change the world. So thank you. It's been a pleasure. I'm glad to take questions, and there's my thank you slide. Thank you. Thank you.
I listened to your story. It's amazing stories and really courageous. My question is about how come you don't hear no?
How come
You don't hear no. It's part of your bringing up, like you say, you had a lot of freedom. So making your own decisions as a child influenced you?
Oh, that's a good question.
I'm wondering.
I can't know 100%. I guess, because people have asked me, Dottie, if your mom was alive, would you be different? I don't think I'd be a different person, but I did whatever as a young child. I was the oldest. My dad was really sick, so he couldn't discipline. So I kind of did whatever I did. When I was young, I just had no. But I also was stubborn. I just didn't take no for an answer. And throughout my life, and it's like somebody, even with me, there's people from all over that try to get me if they want money, they want this, they want that. And then there'll be somebody, and my assistant will say, not available, she's busy, we'll take your number. Then there's someone that calls 200 times, I know they're still calling and they're never stopping. So I finally say, let me just take it. Okay, it's about persistence. And what's the worst thing that can happen if someone says no? Think about it. Because I always look at the consequences. If they're really bad, I would not do that. And I was talking to Dr. Reardon last night, and I said, I tell a story. If you were a surgeon and you were starting, your career as a surgeon, you were doing an operation, you weren't sure of something, hey, be nervous, you could kill somebody. But if you're just asking for something, like a child, when they stand up and they fall, they get back up again, and you tell them don't do it, they do it. So I think it's just something, and then you have to kind of look at it and say, oh, don't take it personally. This person doesn't know me. They don't know what I'm capable of. They might be saying no now, but maybe we have to figure out a better way or a way to communicate it better to them. But try not to take it personally. I don't think there's a secret formula, but I don't. Anybody who's ever done anything always has no's. Doesn't mean it's no. It's just how we're brought up sometimes. Anybody else?
Yes, we do have a question back here, and just so everyone knows, if you raise your hand, we have microphones, and we'll walk around and come find you, okay? All right, over here.
Hi, good afternoon.
Your name?
My name is Zenaida.
Hi,
and
Zenaida.
I am a 2013 graduate from the School of Business.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I wanted to support you and say that through my reading and research, the years, it either was 10 years or 10,000 hours for mastery, and I wanted to say thank you for bringing that up because it reminded me of a book. Well, you remind me, the epitome of a book that I read called The Secret, and so I wanted to ask you, had you ever read it?
Yes, I did.
Thank you. I appreciate
And
your time.
basically, it kind of talks in a way about this, persistence. And if you've ever read it, I think it was probably popular, you're right, about 10 or 12 years ago. Yes, I did read it. It's a good book to read.
Great, we have another question over here.
Hello.
Hi.
My name is Nicole Camiso. I actually just graduated from Siena College in May.
Congrats.
Thank you. In school business, and I actually just started my own company. It's called My Cup Condom.
Say that again loud.
It's called My Cup Condom.
Okay.
It's actually a patented invention for your beverage container, and it covers your cup to protect from either unwanted contaminants like getting drugged or roofied, and it also protects from spilling. So I just founded that in July. We became an LLC. And my question for you is, because since you started so young, how would you say you would approach investors or be as prepared as you can be when approaching investors? Because that's my biggest struggle right now, is getting capital and investors.
Got it. And I do talk a lot about that to people. I'll make you a deal. I don't think I can spend time today with all the people, but I will give you my number or my card, and you can call me, and then you'll tell me, and then I'll tell you the approach that I would do or where I would go. But once you have that idea and you have the business, now you have to raise capital, and that's another trick. But I'm glad to help you do that. You can I'll give you mine at the end.
Thank you so much.
And congratulations
Thank
for
you.
doing
I
that.
appreciate that. Thank you.
We have another question over here, over to your left.
Hello, my
Hello.
name is Catherine.
Hi, Catherine.
I have one question for you. As a woman, how do you personally balance coming off as assertive and coming off as aggressive?
That's a great question. That really is a good question. I can tell you only from my experience that, when a woman is aggressive, sometimes they'll say she's a bitch, she's this, she's that. Whereas a man, and I had a partner, after about 15 years, I had a partner that brought in money. And when he would call, everybody would freak out and do everything right away. When I would ask them to do anything, they would do it when they got around to it. And I never wanted them to be scared of me, but they were. They weren't, but they were of him. And I said, you know what? Maybe I'm better off making them scared of me. I think it's tricky for a woman. I think it's tricky, and I think there's a balance. And I also think that, if you can, I don't want people to fear me. That's not what I think is the way to do it. I mean, but that's, some people get away with that, but I don't think that's the way. I think you have to be assertive. I think you have to follow up. And then when somebody really doesn't listen, I think maybe individually I might get them alone and say, listen, you know what, maybe is there something I could be doing better? Because we're, but it's always going to be a balance for women, I think. But different people, you do it at different times, and if you can, do it sometimes privately with someone. But that's a good point.
Hello, there's a question over here. Hi, Dottie. Your story really connected with me on a lot of different levels, and I was wondering if you were going to be around for a meet and greet after the event or after your talk, so I could talk to you personally.
I will. Here's what I'm going to do. I do a radio show on Saturdays, which I have someone doing the beginning of it. I'm going to go finish my radio show up in my room. It's a call-in show, so I have somebody at the studio, and then I'm going to come back down. And I really, truly, and I have to tell you, thank you, Jody. Thank you, Dr. Reardon. Thank you, everyone here. This is my pleasure to be here. And if there's anything I can do, I would love to. And I'm lucky I've had some great mentors in my life, and I'm glad to be that back. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dottie, for that very inspiring story. You are indeed a brand of persistence and success, and a role model
Thank you.
for everybody
I'll
in
leave
this
this here
room.
and get it
So
later.
let's give another thank you for Dottie.
Thank you, everyone.
And we have a appreciation of thank you from Adelphi University here that we would like to give to you and
Why,
present
thank
to you.
you.
Okay.